Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your Galvin Jay. Up next on the GM, Ravens offense versus Texans defense. Do me a quick favor, hit like. If it is your first time checking out the GM, hit subscribe. Also hit the notification bell so that you get updates when we upload new content. Let's talk about it. So, in our first video, we did the Texans offense versus the Ravens defense, and in this video, we're going to flip it. So let's start with the visiting team. Who are the Houston Texans defensively and what are they? Well, when you consider who the Houston Texans are, they are a young, talented team with stars at every level. When you look into the trenches, the front four, you have Will Henderson and Jonathan Bernard, two young edge rushers who combined for roughly 19 sacks this season. When you look at the second level, you have the linebacker Harris, who had a pick six last week. As a matter of fact, he may have had both pick sixes last week. I can't remember, but I know that he did have at least one. And then when you look at the third level, you have a young, talented Derek Stingley Jr., who earned Defensive Player of the Month in the AFC in the month of December. So you have star power or the potential for superstars at all three levels of this Houston Texans defense. But what are they? Well, according to all of the statistics, the Houston Texans kind of measure in at about number 14 overall in ranking, which doesn't make them great, but it doesn't make them terrible either. It just kind of puts them at just right at an average defense. The Houston Texans as a collective have 46 sacks, which comes out to be an average of about 2.7 per game, which is pretty good. They are pretty decent against the run, and Derek Stingley in that secondary totaled 5 interceptions by himself. So they have an ability to make plays at every level. But when you look at the entire season, not just one game, which we saw last week, but when you look at the entire season, they're simply a middle of the road defense. Now, does that mean they couldn't come in and take advantages of some of our vulnerabilities? No, that's not what that means at all. In fact, I would say that the Houston Texans have an advantage in the trenches. With those two young edge rushers against our offensive tackles, who have been suspect at best this season, that kind of leans into them having an advantage. Now, I know that there are some injuries along that defensive front for the Houston Texans, but if health is not an issue, I give the Texans an advantage simply because of what we've seen from our tackles. Now, our tackle play did get better down the stretch as Ronnie Stanley and Morgan Moses were on a rotation. So I do think we had a lot of improvement, which I think was a catalyst in the last 8 games, averaging 30 points per game offensively for the Ravens. I think that when you consider the Ravens offense, who are we and what are we? Well, I think who we are is still a run-first offense, which is fine. And that run-first offense is absolutely led by Lamar Jackson, but in a different way this year than other years. Lamar Jackson has made a lot of yards on broken plays and scrambles versus just outright a called run, which I have a greater appreciation for because it gives the defense 2 things to think about versus just one. If Lamar Jackson just takes the ball, fakes the handoff, and runs with the ball, all our defense has to do is defend that run. But if Lamar Jackson is dropping back and passing, the defense has 2 things to think about. How do we contain it? And how do we defend the pass? And so I do have an appreciation for that duality when it comes to Lamar Jackson and our offense. I think offensively, we have developed as a better passing team. 100%. I think The first 8 games of the season versus the last 9 games of the season, I think we are absolutely a different team when it comes to the pass game. We are more on the same page. You don't see the miscommunications you saw earlier in the season, meaning Lamar Jackson is throwing the ball inside, the wide receiver's going outside. Lamar's throwing the ball outside, the wide receiver's turning inside. And that just comes a part of reps and chemistry and knowing your excuse me, knowing your teammates. And so I definitely think that there has been a chemistry developed in our passing game, which now makes us balanced. A run first team who has a potent passing offense is a team that's going to be hard to defend. When you look at this game in particular, I think that this game can be won in two areas, in the seams and on the outside with Rashad Bateman. What? Yeah, Rashad Bateman. I'll explain Bateman in a minute. When you go back and check out the Houston Texans and how they performed against other teams' tight ends, they have not performed that well. In fact, they've given up 1,000 yards or so just to tight ends this year. When you look at their game last week against the Cleveland Browns, who led the Cleveland Browns in receiving last week? It was David Njoku, a tight end. And so I think that, and because they have been vulnerable defending the tight end all year long, I think that that is where we have an advantage. We have a young tight end who is a flat out stud in Isaiah Likely, who definitely looks faster and than anybody who's checking him, and he just knows how to catch the ball and get yards after the catch. I think Isaiah Likely has a big game this week. I see Isaiah Likely, depending upon if Mark Andrews plays and how many snaps he takes away from Likely. But if Isaiah Likely is the starter and the primary tight end for this game in particular, I can see him having six-ish catches, 75 to 90 yards for sure, and a touchdown. Because he has been that kind of good when it comes to making plays with the ball in his hands. I think now let me jump to Rashad Bateman. I think that this is going to be a Rashad Bateman game, and I'm gonna tell you why. Derek Stingley Jr. is their best corner, and he followed Amari Cooper last week and held Amari Cooper to 3 catches and about 45 yards. Of course, Zay Flowers is our best wide receiver, and I believe they do the same thing this week. I think they take Derek Stingley Jr. and put him on Zay. Now, here's a real truth. Zay is an elite route runner, and he has elite level quickness. Amari Cooper is an elite route runner, but he does not have that same quickness. So I'm not saying he holds Zay to 3 catches and 45 yards because of the quickness that Zay Flowers has. But if they take Derek Stingley and put him on Zay and follow him around the field, I'm cool with that because that means Zay is receiving the attention that he deserves, which still opens the game up for Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews if he starts, um, and then Rashad Bateman. Let me tell you why I say Rashad Bateman is a key in this game. I believe Rashad Bateman has 4 to 6 catches, 60, 70 yards, and a touchdown. Here's why. And he could have a bigger game than this, but let me get into it. Odell Beckham is going to get attention just because of the brand name that he has. When you think Ravens, you go through the list of their receivers, you're going to pop, two names are going to pop out: Zay and Odell. But Odell gets attention because of the brand name. That doesn't mean he can't make plays. That doesn't mean he won't make a play. But he's going to be second in the order of priorities to get attention this Saturday, right? That's what I believe. which means Rashad Bateman is going to have an opportunity to get open, catch the ball, and make plays because those other two guys are going to get the attention, Beckham and Zay. And then if and when Isaiah Likely and or Mark Andrews gets it going, those three will get all of the attention, which then again leaves Rashad Bateman singled up. And we understand who Rashad Bateman is. He is a good route runner. He does have good hands. He does have good speed. And he should come into this game as healthy as he's been in a long time, which I believe leads him to have one of his best games or the best game of this season as it pertains to Rashad Bateman. I think that Nelson Aguilar is also going to get some catches against this defense, depending on how many touches he gets, because when a team is vulnerable against a tight end, that also leaves them vulnerable against a slot receiver who works the same type of area, not the same exact area, but the same type of area as a tight end. That's that seam inside to outside, that kind of thing. So I think we have an advantage, especially if they decide to let Derek Stingley follow Zay Flowers. But oh, if they don't, and if they have that kind of confidence in the rest of their receivers to just single up Zay, they're going to have a long day. I think another advantage that we have that I noticed as I just did some research and just kind of looked at some games and things of that nature from the Houston Texans is going to be Justice Hill or Dalvin Cook. What I mean is not necessarily running the ball, but catching the ball. The Houston Texans also have a vulnerability against running back screens. When you go back and you look at the leading receivers from games and things like that, you will always find playing against the Texans there was a running back who was in that top four receiving per that game for the opposing team. And so I believe that uh, any of our running backs, because I've seen Gus Edwards catch the ball too. So any of our running backs, I think we have an advantage in that area as well. So when we consider everything as a whole, whether it's we have an advantage against this defense with our tight ends, whether it's we have an advantage against this team if we utilize effectively the running back screens, or whether Zay and Odell pull the attention from the defense and Bateman has a big game, which I certainly believe could happen. It's going to come down to who out executes the other team. This team is going to be won based on execution. I think that our offense has an ability to be excellent with how we utilize and execute our game plan. You see, I think that we're going to come out and we're going to establish the run. And I don't know what that run will produce. I don't know if it'll produce the highest average in the league at 150 yards per game, which the Ravens are, or if that will be 30 carries for 100 yards, 3 yards a carry. But I think that that's where we start. And if we can establish the run and use our running backs in the screen game, it stretches the defense sideline to sideline, which they're not always great at. And if they're stretched sideline to sideline, then we can start hitting them in the middle. So I believe it's going to be execution, which is it is always execution that wins or loses a game. But I think that we have our offense versus their defense. I think we have more advantages overall. So listen, let me know what you guys think our advantages are offensively. Please be respectful and thoughtful in the comment section. I really appreciate that. And man, I thank you guys, man, for checking us out, man. We have a couple more videos coming up before the game kicks off on Saturday. So listen, I'm your guy, Boulanger. This is the GM, and we're out.